subtler.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
So this is our crit play of Resident Evil 4. Not a Let's Play. This is actually a post-script recording. We have already played the game, and we are just going to talk about it. It's not necessarily like a Let's Play, it's more of an very extended review. So the people playing this thing, it's me, Woody, and then Brandon.
Yes, I am also a part of this.
So anyway, as I said, this is going to kind of play out like an extended review for Resident Evil 4. And the reason I kind of wanted to start off doing Resident Evil 4 is because Resident Evil 4 is a very good game. At least I believe it is. Brandon, I know you do too.
Yeah, I've only gone through this game probably 4 times on every platform it's been released on. So...
Yeah, I played the GameCube version extensively, I played the Wii version extensively, and now I'm playing the HD version extensively, which, by the way, that's what all this footage is going to be from. It's going to be from the HD version on the 360.
Yeah, I bought a GameCube actually specifically for this game because at the time it literally said only for GameCube because of Capcom's exclusivity deal with Nintendo at the time.
You have a much more extensive history with Resident Evil than I do. Resident Evil 4 was pretty much my first full game I actually played of this series. I have played the other ones on various other people's consoles, and I actually played through all of Dino Crisis 1 and 2, which was kind of like Resident Evil, but just with dinosaurs.
It was, and it was also just a fantastic idea that should have gone far further than it did.
This game was kind of like my big introduction to Resident Evil.
Before RE4, I was living in California at the time, actually. We moved there when I was 7, and my 8th birthday was coming up, and I wanted a PlayStation. So, I got really lucky and was given one for my birthday. Only thing I got. And I just begged and begged my mother to let me rent Resident Evil 2. I begged her, and I begged her, and I begged her. And eventually she let me rent it. And this was Blockbuster, and they only let you take one disc at a time, so... I ended up with Claire's disc, and I put it in, and I could not for the life of me figure out what was going on, and I died gruesomely at the very beginning of the game. And I had nightmares that night. I mean, extensive nightmares that night, and after that, I was hooked, and I could not get enough of the franchise.
So before 4 came out, you had played all of the other games, right? Like all of the mainline ones, at least.
Oh yeah. I'd played 1 quite a bit on the PlayStation after I'd played a bunch of 2. I never finished 2 on the PlayStation because I was really little at the time. 8 years old. And then I played a little bit of the number 3. I didn't get Code Veronica until after it got ported to the PS2. But the Outbreaks, yeah, I played all of them. I played the remakes on the GameCube, which was fantastic, actually, so...
The reason I wanted to do this series focused on Resident Evil 4, because as we've said, it's a very good game, but one of the reasons I think it is a good game, probably the main reason I think it is a good game, is because this game's combination of level design and enemy design is pretty much... perfect. I don't really know if I'd say it's surpassed by anything else in the entire history of gaming. This is a game where almost every single room is a unique experience in some way. It's some unique combo of enemies in a uniquely designed level or area, and it basically just provides a different challenge for each area you go through.
Yeah, I mean... everything's there for a purpose. It's very clear that each area was designed with every item in place for a very specific reason.
Resident Evil 4 is pretty much the only game where I can start in my head at the beginning of Resident Evil 4, and I can run through the entire game. Like, I remember every single room in this game. You know, I played it maybe 5-6 times since it came out, but to be able to remember like every room of the game in order, that's pretty rare for a game. Like can't think of anything else I can do that with. I can't do that with games that I really like more than this. And I think it shows how good the design is. So that's why I feel this kind of setup of going through the game and doing this kind of extended review is interesting, because this game actually has the depth to warrant that. And personally, I would say that lack of focused design is maybe why the RE5 and RE6 suffered a little bit. And they maybe don't feel like they have that at some points. And that's something I've always been interested in with RE4, 5, and 6, is that 4 was such like an undeniably great game. 5 was pretty good, but by general consensus really isn't as good as 4, and 6 was kind of at parts. And my opinion is that it's because it kind of lacks that perfect design. Everything in RE4 works where it is, you don't really need more or less of it, and I think RE5 and 6 kind of took that a little too far.
Yeah, 4 definitely has the stronger focus of what they were trying to do. 6 was literally all over the place, because they were trying to tell multiple stories, and they wanted to make each story have their own unique enemies and their own unique experience as you're going through it. And I think that's where it really suffers, is because it feels like you've got a horror game when you're playing one campaign, but the rest of them feel like estranged action games, and it's like, I'm not sure how I should feel about this as a whole because of it.
I have not played RE6 all that much. I have played it for a few hours. I rented it for one night from Redbox, played it for a few hours, and just could not get into it. And it was just kind of like, I'll come back to it at some point in the future. Like, I want to play it. I might end up having to play it in co-op to make it, like, to motivate myself to do it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, I just couldn't get into 6.
And I can see that, and I understand it. I had some troubles here and there, too. Leon's campaign was pretty much the only one I could really get through, because that's the one that felt most like a horror game. I mean, Chris, Jake, and Ada's campaign, those just like, okay, alright, come on. I mean, if they had just eliminated that factor...
Shoot the guys with the thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they had, like, just removed those and took all their focus and put it into the one campaign, you know, really made the enemies stand out a little bit more. Not that they didn't. I mean, when you get into the game, you've got some really unique enemies, and, I mean, certain segments throughout actually pay homage to, like, Code Veronica at a few points, and I was actually really surprised at that, and I appreciated it for what it was.
It's just always baffled me how that quality is worked, because it's kind of like, you guys got it so right with RE4. Lightning might not necessarily strike twice, but really all you need to do to make, like, a AAA amazing Resident Evil again is just copy RE4. Just do RE4 again in a new place with new enemies. Don't force co-op, bring back the attaché case. They're changing everything that worked and not changing what needed to be changed to make it more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, 5 was okay with the way they did the weapon switching, because you had it mapped to your D-pad so you could quickly switch to this, that, or a healing item if you needed to. That worked really well because they managed to make the game more fast-paced, but when you had the normal enemies, it still kind of had that RE4 feel. But as the game progressed, it's like, why do they have guns now? I don't get it. This is starting to get out of hand. Stop it.
So in this opening scene here, you find out that between RE3, or between Code Veronica, I guess, and RE4, Umbrella's dead. And now, I hadn't played a lot of Resident Evil at the time this game came out, but even I thought that was odd to just sort of kill off your main antagonist organization just kind of overnight. Like, oh yeah, Umbrella's super dead. I mean, to face facts, they were pretty much dead after RE3. There's no way they're coming back from that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, as somebody who actually played the games, how do you feel about just Umbrella sort of unceremoniously dying off screen?
Well, I mean, it was kind of based on when they have Resident Evil 4 take place, which was present day at the time that it came out. I mean, it'd been like 6 years since they decided to nuke a city. I'm pretty sure they're going to get shut down in that time frame, but it would have been nice for them to actually, you know, show more emphasis on the fall. I mean, they did that later with Umbrella Chronicles.
Yeah, they
touched
came
on
back
that.
to it later with a couple things.
Yeah, but it's like they did it more like in a light gun game, so you really didn't get to experience the fall. You got to watch the fall.
It's such a weird thing to not have be in the series. Like, after 3, there was no doubt Umbrella was done for, but it's so weird that you don't really ever get to play it, and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
As this game starts, you are playing as Leon S. Kennedy, who has, let's face facts, had a pretty good career post RE2. Within about 6 years, he went from, like, cop first day on the force to bodyguard of the president's family.
Yeah,
That seems like a fast track.
Yeah, that's a pretty big promotion for a newbie.
You're Leon, you're trying to capture the president's daughter. It's all... We'll talk about the plot more as stuff comes out, but I guess I'll just say right now, I love this plot because it's super dumb and all the characters are super hammy. This game has so many lines that are really not written well, and the voice acting does them with such gusto that it's impossible not to, like, love Leon's, like, dumb, badass action hero voice. You go into the first cabin and you immediately start fighting dudes. And this is sort of the point where I think you can start to judge the quality of this game. This game has absolutely no tutorials at all. It's just, within about 30 seconds of getting control of Leon, the game is now going. There's no, like, hour-long, oh, this is how you shoot, this is how you jump.
It worked actually quite well because, I mean, the controls were simple enough, but were also quite precise. So it was really easy for people to pick up and start, playing the game as opposed to being told how to play the game.
This first little stretch of land here is constructed really well to sort of slowly introduce you to a few different concepts. You get the first Ganado, which is just using the basic weapons, and then the ones outside have the different weapons, the pitchforks and the grabs. And then as you travel down your path, you get into the first section with traps. And this is a really good section here because it introduces those traps in a way that is really, really obvious.
Yeah, they make it so you can see them, so that way you know that it's something to expect in the future. Something that, okay, well, this is a problem.
There are going to be trip lines, and there are going to be bear traps in the future. And you meet Huey, too, the dog from Haunting Ground. So, now we're getting into the village. And this isn't the start of the game. You do that little section before. This is the de facto introduction to RE4. And I think it's amazing that they do this sequence so early on in the game. And I think it's actually pretty ballsy they do this sequence so early on, because it's pretty hard for the point in the game at which you play it. It introduces an enemy that can one-shot you. It introduces a giant horde of infinitely spawning enemies.
And it's done in a manner where it's like they're not just... the enemies aren't really thrown at you. You kind of walk into it, and then once they notice you, then it becomes a problem. It's almost like they expect you to just try and walk through it without doing anything.
So this is one of the sections that I will ask you about too. What is your strategy for this section? Because it's one of those things where I've seen people play this game, I looked up LPs, seen friends play this. Everybody seems like they have a different strategy for this section, and everyone always thinks their strategy is clearly the most obvious way to do it. It's hilarious. I love it.
Well, I wouldn't say any one strategy is the one to go with, just because there's a number of different rooms in which you can take up hiding. I mean, there really is. My personal preference is the room that you first go into, essentially, or the first one that you're kind of led to in the middle of town and is used in the cutscene, is the one I tend to stay in. After I barricade the window, I run upstairs and there's the shotgun. So I'll grab the shotgun and I will position myself between the stairs railing and a bed, because the bed's long enough and the railing is wide enough that it will literally force them to be right in front of you before they can even swing to hit you. So it kind of gives you a place to where you can just sit and let them funnel right at you.
I have a 3-part strategy for the village section. The first part of my strategy is that Salvador doesn't spawn until you go into the house with the shotgun. And I figured that out the first time I played this game, and I felt very proud of myself for figuring that out. Even though I think it's pretty obvious once you die, like, once or twice.
Yeah.
So, my strategy every time is that I comb the village for ammo. I go up the tower, get the ammo there. I go and swipe all the boxes around the edge that aren't inside of buildings. Because generally speaking, if you just run, nothing can catch you. And then if something gets in your way, you can just shoot it once with a handgun. And once I've got all of my ammo, I go into the Dr. Salvador spawning house with a shotgun, get that shotgun, get the ammo and everything. I hop out the window on the top floor and run to the corner of the house, outside. So enemies have to approach from in front of me, and just to my back is just the jump off of the house. And so that's because if I get overrun, I can just jump off the house and run away.
Right.
And then I'm totally good.
Yeah, and there's...
It's a nice little tricky way out.
Yeah, and there's no ladder over there either, so they can't really just prop up a ladder and get up there, because the ladders are all placed in specific spots.
If I get really pressured, I run into the house across the way from that one, which many players might know has an invincible door in it, and you can play the door game. Which is, you go into the invincible door room, which you have to break a lock to do it, and then once you're in there, you wait for a zombie to open the door, and then you shoot it. Oh, sorry, not a zombie, a Ganado. And then you shoot the you shoot the Ganado, they get stunned and fall backwards, and the door closes. So then they get stuck in a repeated sequence where they have to keep trying to open the door and you keep shooting them. And this works on all of them, even Salvador. This first section introduces what is probably, I would argue, is maybe the most iconic enemy in this game, which is Dr. Salvador.
I would agree with you on that one. I mean, it's the first, I'm going to call him a sub-boss enemy that you're going to encounter. And you encounter essentially the same formulaic character throughout. I mean, there's a couple of variations of Dr. Salvador, but really, it's still just someone with their face covered, running around with a chainsaw.
It's such a good example of a good character design because he has no story significance whatsoever, but he was the dude that showed up in all the promo material. Dr. Salvador is like a more important character towards marketing RE4 than pretty much anybody but Leon. Like, Sadler's not in anything, Krauser's not in anything, Salazar isn't. No, it's just like Leon fighting the chainsaw dude.
Yeah, the chief, I think, appeared in one ad. The village chief, and it was like he points and the camera zooms out really far and it shows the village and it says Resident Evil 4, but that was it. I mean, everything else they emphasized Salvador.
I think probably the thing that works so well about Salvador is the sound of the chainsaw is perfect. They got it so right.
And you always hear that before anything else, and it's just, you get this...
You always hear it before you see him.
Yep, and you get that chill up your spine, and you're just like, okay, I need something with a punch.
Well, and because it's so good how they do that revving sound, too, because it's always a few revs every time until he's pissed off chasing you.
Yeah.
So always from the distance, just like the... 99% of people playing the village the first time get killed by Salvador.
Yeah.
That is not a scientific statistic, but I doubt it isn't true.
Yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to argue with you on that one. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, well, like with the whole non-tutorial thing, they teach you how to play with, like, the lead-up.
Yeah, they teach you how to play by killing you.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's such a good teacher because it's just one of those, you know when you die, it's just sort of this... Oh, shit, this guy kills me in one shot.
Yeah, it very quickly teaches you not to get hit ever.
And it teaches you to be terrified of chainsaws and terrified of those powerful enemies like that. Because then that's a trend for the rest of the game, too, that, again, it's establishing that early on. Okay, you know, you like the player, you see all these big sub-bosses that have these really mean-looking weapons. They will goddamn kill you. They will kill you fast. Most of them have one-hit kills. You should avoid them. This is the time to use your power weapons. It's the time to use your grenades.
It's pretty much the time to unload everything you have in your inventory.
And then all of the sub-bosses, too, have similarly cool intros to Salvador. And I guess we'll talk about more of those when we actually get to fight them in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, the final thing you get in this scene is Leon's amazing line of, "Where is everybody going? Bingo."
Ah, yes. With the camera zooming out and moving up into the sky before it shows you the title sequence.
A joke Leon makes to absolutely no one.
Yeah.
I will add. No one's talking to him at that point. No one's even in the village. Just sort of Leon making dumb jokes to himself after he almost gets killed.
Yeah, that's appropriate. I mean, I guess he's trying to lighten the mood, but, I mean, it's not really going to work on yourself.
So I think that's going to pretty much bring it to a close on this one. We didn't really get too far in the game on this video, but there's a lot to talk about at the start of the game.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, these couple of... The later videos for this, we're probably going to cover a bit more and get more done in a similar amount of time. And we'll talk about some of the weird trivia stuff we know. We'll get into strategies for areas and stuff like that. I think the plan for this right now is that we're going to try to have one of these out every week. And if you like this, go check out us playing Dead Aim, which is the dumbest Resident Evil. It might even be dumber than RE4.
Yeah, so go ahead and check out Yield Tomato on YouTube, and you can watch us play through that very interesting light gun game.
Alright, thanks for watching. If you want to see Brandon and I play some other dumb video games, you can check out our full playthrough of Ride to Hell Retribution by clicking here. And if you want to check out more Brandon's stuff, you can check out his channel by clicking here.